Comic books and books this week is just comic books, but it's legal comic books. It's not exactly as dry as you're thinking. DC and Marvel both have lost a trademark that they owned together that will absolutely change the rest of the industry. So let's talk about that. Hello, nerds, and welcome to this week's episode of The News as it pertains to comic books and books. No discussion of current storylines, story arcs, or any of those kind of details is going to happen here per se. I am, after all, a one-man organization and can't read every book that comes out and report on it and any of the news therein. But we can talk about new announcements and major changes as they pertain to any of the publishers that we follow, or just generally nerdy literary information in that sense. So let's get into all of that, shall we? And also, if you dig what's going on here, there is a much more up-to-date and possibly relevant, because it takes a second to get these sections posted up, so probably much more up-to-date version of the news in long form I like to call The Week in Nerddom over on the main channel, which you can find linked in the description as well as at the end of this video. That show covers many more points of interest in the nerd community, in the pop culture community at large, and so definitely go check that out. Now let's get into all of those literary notes, shall we? All right, so we are only talking about the one thing, and it's regular news in comic books and books this week. It is the trademark for the term superhero. So up until whenever this filed, last week, I believe, maybe it was a little bit beyond that, it was just reported in the last week, the US Trademark Office had the trademark licensed to both Marvel and DC. And then we got comic book writer Richold, who is the creator of the Super Babies comic book series, filed a motion with the US Trademark Office tribunal in order to question the validity of their ability to own the trademark for the word, or the term rather, superhero. The argument was they can't own a trademark over an entire genre of storytelling. So the tribunal canceled the trademark. As of last week, it has officially been canceled. This, again, was jointly held by DC and Marvel. They had the exclusive ability to use the term superhero until last week. So this is going to be broadly sweeping throughout the entire industry. Independent comic books are going to be able to, books in general at this point, because I've definitely read some superhero fiction that was not actually, or that could not rather, use the word superhero because it wasn't distributed by DC or Marvel. So yeah, that's really, really, really broadly sweeping. The really interesting thing about this too is S.J. Richold is a writer who is from England. He's from the UK. He's from London specifically. So he isn't even a US citizen as far as I understand, but he still is the one that filed the motion that canceled the trademark. That's pretty crazy. So what this is exactly going to do for other comic book publishers very much remains to be seen, but it's huge. Just the implications here are gigantic. So this is going to change independent and third-party comic books forever. And it's only a good thing, I think. So that's our one piece of news for comic books and books. We do have a suggestion this week for comic books, and again, we are in spooky season, so I feel like this is one that you should expect probably at least once every year. We're going to suggest it because it is one of the most classic comic books ever. One of those that everyone should read. It's a Batman book. It is Batman: The Long Halloween. While technically not exclusively a Halloween book, it's why it's the first one in the month of October, it is again named Halloween. It starts on Halloween and ends on Halloween. It is everything that happens in the course of that year. And I mean, what can you say about The Long Halloween that has not already been said? Aside from the fact that a lot of the things that happen, if not everything that happens in this book, maybe was going to happen even if Batman hadn't been involved, I think is one of the detracting arguments. So it's really interesting to read it once and then you go back with that knowledge and read it again and go, that's not entirely wrong. So yeah, Either way, it's a fantastic book. Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale wrote a classic. Came out in, oh, when did it come out? 89? I don't have it in here, but whatever. You get a lot of origins for a lot of the rogues gallery for Batman. You get just some really fantastic Batman storytelling, even if, again, he's kind of a secondary character in his own book. It's still really good. Go read The Long Halloween. Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale. That is your suggestion for comic books and books this week. That brings us to the end of the video, nerds. Thank you very much for joining me for the news. Once again, there is a full and probably much more up-to-date and recent episode of the news, the full-length version, if you will, called The Week in Nerddom over on the main channel, linked down in the description, and probably link popping up somewhere around my face right about now. So click on that, go check that out as well, or if you prefer your news in more truncated pieces, then by all means just stick around here and go check out some of the other stuff we offer on this channel. Thank you very much for joining me. We will see you in the next one. Before we go, always remember, nerds, that if it is generally nerdy, it's probably here.